Hello, today is April 7th, 2005. My name is Rod Sellers. I'm a volunteer with the Southeast Historical Society, which is cooperating with the Veterans History Project to collect oral histories from area residents who participated in the events surrounding World War II. We are in the Southeast Historical Museum, and we will be interviewing Homer Bollheimer, who wants to be called Joe, so we will be referring to Homer as Joe in this interview. Homer lives at 2584 Logan Lane in Linwood, Illinois. Joe served in the United States Armed Forces during World War II, and we are going to be interviewing him about his experiences in that war. Morning.
Morning.
Would you please start out by introducing yourself to us?
My name is Homer Bollheimer. I served in the Marines in World War II.
Okay, and can you give us your full name, the place, and the date of your birth?
Homer L. Bollheimer. I was born in Fort Laramie, Ohio, June 18th, 1918.
And your current address?
It's 2584 Logan Lane, Linwood, Illinois.
And the branch of the service that you served in was?
The U.S. Marine Corps.
And what was the highest rank that you attained in the Marine Corps?
Tech Sergeant.
Okay. And just briefly, although we'll go over it again, where did you serve during your time in the military?
I served in Hawaii and Midway Island and the Solomon Islands.
So it was primarily in the Pacific theater of the war?
South Pacific, yeah.
Okay.
Mostly.
All right. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
Volunteer.
And what was the date of your enlistment?
I enlisted right after Pearl Harbor, but I wasn't sworn in until January the 2nd.
Okay, 1942.
In Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, and that would have been not even a month after Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Do you remember Pearl Harbor, December 7th?
Absolutely.
What were...
I was in Cincinnati at the time.
Okay, can you tell us what you were
Friends
doing?
and I, a couple of friends and I were in a restaurant having a spaghetti dinner.
And that was a Sunday?
Sunday afternoon.
And how did you actually become informed about
Someone
it?
came in and heard it on the radio.
Okay, and what was your reaction?
Well, unbelief.
And how long after that did it take before you enlisted?
We went down to Dayton, Ohio a couple of days later and signed up for the Marines. But they gave us an extension until after New Year's, after the holidays.
Okay. Why did you pick the Marine Corps?
I really don't.
But that was your choice.
My brother and I went in together.
Okay, and it was your choice to go into the Marines. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Oh yes, I remember getting into boot camp.
Where was the
Off
boot
the
camp?
train, Paris Island,
Okay.
South Carolina, and those first days in boot camp were rough.
Can you tell us a little bit about them? Remember?
Well, being introduced to the first sergeant and the assistant sergeant, and he's laying down the rules.
Mm-hmm. What was your boot camp experience like?
It wasn't really bad because at that time they were pushing us through so fast.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we got through boot camp in about 2 months, including the rifle range. Normally it would take 3 months.
Okay.
But they were forming platoons so fast they had to push them through.
Right, due to manpower needs.
Yeah.
Do you remember your instructors?
Oh yes, I remember the names.
DIs? Were they calling them DIs back then?
Yeah, I remember the names.
Yeah. Any particular things that helped you get through the experience?
Well, nothing special.
Okay.
As I say, it wasn't as rough as I had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were moving us through so fast.
Right, right. After boot camp, where were you assigned?
To Jacksonville Naval Air Station, Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, and was that further training at that point?
Was a naval aviation school.
And what did they train you to do in the Naval Aviation School?
All mechanical.
Okay, so
It was a 6-month course.
your basic job in the military was
A mechanic.
aviation mechanic.
Yeah.
So you worked on airplanes.
Yeah.
Did you have any experience prior to that?
just with some friends who had small planes. But I
Okay.
didn't have any flying experience. But
Right, but you had worked on planes?
Worked on small engines, yeah.
Okay.
Small aircraft engines.
And is that primarily the reason the military put you into that
I think
job?
that's why my brother and I were selected.
Mhm.
Well, there were only two of us out of the whole platoon.
Right. Um, and you say that was about 6 months additional training?
Yes.
Okay, and after that, where did you end up going?
Went for advanced training at Chinook Field.
Which is in Illinois?
Yeah.
Okay.
And had a special course on propellers.
And what did that involve?
All propeller work,
Okay.
all types of propellers.
And what types of planes were you trained to work on?
None during the training. We just happened to be assigned to Corsairs, fighters.
Okay.
But we were not trained specifically for any type of airplane.
Okay, so it was just general
Just-
aviation
yeah,
mechanics.
yes, I worked on instruments and propellers.
And the Corsair, didn't they have a number and a name for it?
F4Us.
F4Us. And the Navy give them a different name or not?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Corsair was the plane that had the strange wing
The gull.
configuration, like a gull, right?
Inverted gull.
Is that what they called it?
Inverted gull.
Okay, the inverted gull. Okay, now, after your training at Chinook, what was your next assignment?
We were sent up to Navy Pier, waiting to be sent out to California and assigned to a group.
Did you do any training at all at Navy Pier?
No.
You weren't involved in any of those,
Just had some guard duty.
some of that aircraft landings, the aircraft that ended up
No,
in
we
Lake
weren't-
Michigan?
That came a little later.
Right, okay. And then you say you were assigned to the Pacific?
We were sent out to San Diego, and
Okay.
then we went up to Santa Barbara, where we were formed into a group, a fighter group.
Okay, and then after that group was formed, what was your first actual combat assignment? Would that be next?
We were sent out to Hawaii for 3 months, and then shipped out to Midway Island.
Okay.
We relieved the fighter group on Midway. In fact, we were the second group to have Corsairs.
Okay, now when you were assigned to Midway, what was the time frame?
Probably April or May of '43.
Okay. And what was going on in the Pacific in regards to the war at that time?
At that time, Guadalcanal was almost secured at that time.
Okay.
It was late in the battle of Guadalcanal.
Okay, so this is
I think Guadalcanal was actually secured in August of 42.
and Guadalcanal took a lot longer than anybody anticipated.
Yeah, 43.
Okay. Okay, and what memories do you have of what was going on Midway at that time? Were they
Well-
flying combat missions from Midway?
Well, they were patrolling, just patrolling, and the Japs were doing a lot of snooping around.
How close was Midway to the nearest Japanese positions?
I don't recall. All I know is that we were closer to Japan than we were to the States.
You were a little more than Midway. Okay, after Midway, what was your next assignment?
Back to Hawaii, and then we shipped down to the Hebrides.
Okay, and can you give us just a little description of where the Hebrides are?
They're off of Australia.
Okay, they're north of
And
Australia.
north of I think they're north of New Caledonia,
Okay,
and the name has been changed now. It's called Vanuatu.
okay,
You see this on this
right.
that survivor thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
That's
so
the
that was
same
a big
out- that's the same
publicity.
out, yeah.
Did you?
We were on Espiritu Santo.
Okay, did you watch the Survivor program with Vanuatu?
Not too much.
But you did see a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you recognize anything or?
No landmarks.
Okay, it's a jungle island and that's
Yeah.
it. What were your duties and what was your unit doing at that time on the Hebrides?
We were training pilots,
Okay,
training new pilots.
and were there any combat missions being done
Not
from
the
there?
Hebrides, no.
Okay. After the Hebrides, next assignment?
Guadalcanal.
Oh, so then you went to Guadalcanal
Yeah, we went
after
to
it had
Guad-
been secured?
We went to Guadalcanal waiting to go into Munda, which is in the New Georgia group.
Okay,
And as soon as Munda was secured, we moved in there. And from there, we went to Bella.
okay, now, at what point did your unit become involved in combat?
At Bella,
Okay, and what were some of the missions that they were flying?
up to Rabaul, escort missions.
Okay, escorting bombers?
Escorting B-24
Okay,
and TBFs, torpedo bombers, dive bombers.
okay. How long were you there? And can you give us sort of a time frame again now?
Probably 4 months
Okay, and that would be what year?
in 43.
This is near the end of 43?
Yes, probably November.
Okay,
From there, we went into Bougainville.
okay, and now where's Bougainville for anybody
Bougainville
that's
is
not real?
just north of the New Georgia group.
Okay.
And
We should have had a Pacific map so we could point out all these places, because these are not the kind of places that are right on the tops of
Right.
people's mind.
but it's all part of the Bismarck archipelago.
Right, right. So it's part of that island hopping
Right.
that's going on in the Pacific.
Bypassing the Japanese.
Right, the big strongholds. What were some of the strongholds that you bypassed?
Well, the main one was they had a big base in Kalamangara and several others in the New Georgia group, and another island called Schweizell. And this is what they call the slot,
Mm-hmm.
the area between the islands where
Right.
where the Japs were coming down from Rabaul to bomb Guadalcanal and other islands. But after the landing on Bougainville, the Japs didn't really bother us too much anymore.
Okay.
We were getting some bombing on, mostly night bombing on Bella, just try to keep us from getting arrested.
Right, right. And after that, what's your next assignment? Because we're at the end of 1943, right?
Yes, we stayed on Bougainville. In fact, it was real quiet on Bougainville until sometime in March, when the Japanese brought down some howitzers from the north end of the island and started hitting us, and we had to move all the planes off the island for 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
But they brought dive bombers in and cruisers and quieted them down again.
Okay, and then next assignment. Because you were in quite a few places there.
Well, we were back to Guadalcanal for a rest period, and then we came back up to another island north of Bougainville called Marine Island.
Okay.
And we had fighter planes. We had a new strip in there with fighter planes. We were about 100 miles east of Rabaul.
Okay. Going back to your rest period on Guadalcanal, how long a period of rest did they give you?
Oh, it must have been a month or 6 weeks or so. It
What-
was secured at that.
What did your rest consist of? They provide any entertainment, or was?
Oh, we had movies, yeah.
But it was basically just being taken out of a
Yeah, out of
combat zone.
Combat areas, yeah.
Right, right,
And better food.
right. Okay, so now we've got you into 1944. Okay, and what would be your next assignment after that?
Well, after we were on Green Island for several months, I forget just the time lapse. And we came back to Guadalcanal, and from there we, in late 44, November of 44, we got a ship back home to the States.
And what was the reason for that, being taken out of the old combat zone?
Well, most of our men in the company were relieved because they had enough time out there, and our unit, we went on into the Philippines.
Okay, but you were no longer with the unit at that particular point.
No.
So after the end of 44, you were back in the States.
Right, I was back in the States in November, and finally got a 30-day leave.
Okay. So after that point, you were no longer brought back into a combat
No
situation.
more combat.
I understand that you served with quite a famous squadron.
Oh, we serviced the 214. This was Bollington's Black Sheep.
Okay,
They were with us for about 6 weeks on Bella.
okay. Any good stories? Because he was supposedly quite a character.
Well, he liked to wrestle. We had a man with us from Indiana who was actually a cook, but he was a big guy, and Bollington always wanted to wrestle with him. So he'd come up and he'd bring a couple of bottles of wine, and they'd wrestle on the tent floor to get it out of his system.
Who was the winner?
It usually pretty much of a draw, I think.
Yeah. But put on a pretty good.
He just liked to get it out of his. He was a good wrestler in college.
Mm-hmm. Did you work? You worked on the planes then that the Black Sheep Squadron
we
flew?
serviced those planes. In fact, we set records out there for availability, aircraft availability, and engine changes.
Right, meaning that planes were not out of service.
Yes, almost 95% availability.
Did Boynton's squadron create more damage to planes than others?
I say they had quite a bit of damage. They lost some pilots.
Mm-hmm.
We also lost pilots in 222
Right.
while we were stationed there. But there were, I think, were more lost in combat than operational.
Mm-hmm. Were there any combat incidents at the base? You mentioned the howitzers that came in at one point.
Yeah, we had to. That was on Bougainville.
Were there? Did the Japanese make any air raids against your base?
Not too much at Bougainville because we had too much power there.
Mm-hmm.
Too many fighter squadrons.
But in any of the other bases, any air raids?
Mostly on Bella.
Okay.
Night.
Okay. Were there any particularly memorable experiences you had during this time?
Well, one thing I remember from Espirito Santo, we had some new pilots in, and we had one of them crash in our area one morning on takeoff, and the Corsair was hard because of long cowl. It was hard to taxi, and that, even when you got taking off, they had to look both sides, and it was kind of fishtail. And the pilot lost control, and he crashed right in our engineering area. Lost the propeller in the engine and flipped over upside down. Fortunately, he had the canopy open. And it took about 20 of us, the guys working around there, to lift the tail up to get him out of the cockpit.
But he was
survived.
He survived. Okay.
We had to cut his safety belt, turn him loose.
Yeah. Were you awarded any medals or citations for your service?
Oh, I have some medals.
Do we want to take a look at them? They're here?
Yeah.
Here,
I
I'll
know
let you.
they're all there. I think one's missing.
Okay, so we have here a victory medal from World War II.
All right.
Now we can just take a look at that. And that was just for anybody who was in the service during World War II.
All right.
Okay, this one now. This was an American campaign,
Yeah.
and what was the significance of that? The American campaign. It's a term I'm not familiar with.
Anything involved in World War II that I can remember.
Okay.
This is the Asiatic Pacific Theater.
Okay. I remember we did a project and they had some ribbons on the different campaigns that people were involved in.
A good conduct medal is missing.
Oh, maybe you didn't have such good conduct. That was always the medal that we were surprised my father received.
I didn't get these medals until late, 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I never got them while I was in the service, but I found out that I was qualified, and I had to write down to a naval office in Kansas City.
Mhm.
And they looked up my records and sent these medals.
Any particular reason why?
I don't know why.
Why they didn't give them when they
When I was
when they
discharged.
should have been?
I should have got them when I was discharged.
Okay. Okay. After let's see now. End of 1944, a number of people from your unit get sent back to the States.
Right.
Okay, and you were in the service until January of '46. So what did you do for that last year or so?
After I had a 30-day leave, and over Christmas and New Year's of '44, New Year's of '45, and I was reassigned to a transport group in Southern California. I'm trying to think of the name of the base.
Marine base.
Should be in there someplace. Here.
Transport group meaning
Hill Central, California.
Okay.
Here.
All right. And then
While I was there, I had a chance to go back to school. So I found out that they had a course open here in Chicago at vocational school, Chicago
Okay.
Vocational School, because the Navy had taken it over. And I thought, well, it's close enough to home, I can get home on a weekend.
right. So you did spend time at Chicago Vocational,
Yeah,
which
after-
was a military.
Yeah, the Navy.
Facility
the
at that
Navy
time.
The Navy had taken it over.
Can you tell us a little bit about Chicago Vocational at that time? What kind of training the Navy was doing there, and
It's
how they
all-
were operating it?
Well, it's all different courses in taking care of airplanes.
So it was an aviation.
In fact, they had 2 airplanes parked on Anthony Avenue.
Okay. I can still remember airplanes being at Chicago Vocational
Yeah.
because they had the aviation program
This is
for
one of them.
quite some time.
This is one of them.
Is this where was this picture taken?
This was taken on Anthony Avenue.
Oh, okay. So here we have a picture. If I were to look at that, I would assume it was a war zone somewhere.
That was a torpedo bomber.
Okay. And who are the people that are in this picture?
These were the 3 of us Marines. This boy's from Georgia, and this boy was from Tennessee, and the rest of these sailors, I'm not sure where they're actually from.
If you were training at Chicago Vocational, where did they house you?
In the dorms.
Right in-
Yeah, we had dorms.
Okay, so it was
Yeah.
not only
No, we
for
stayed
classrooms, et cetera. It was
Yeah.
housing. It was
Yeah.
just like a base.
In fact, we had a hospital. I spent a week in a hospital there with an ear infection.
Okay. How long were you at Chicago Vocational? And what did they call it at that time? And obviously they weren't calling it Chicago Vocational.
Yeah.
That was the name of it?
Yeah, they call it Chicago.
Okay. How long were you there?
3 months.
And what kind of training did you do over there?
We had advanced training on propellers,
Okay.
new propellers.
All right. Okay, then after Chicago Vocational,
Back to El Centro.
okay.
And I was in El Centro until late in December, and then they sent me up to Miramar Naval Air Station to get my discharge
Miramar is near San Diego?
outside of San Diego.
Yeah, that's kind of a very famous
Oh yeah,
air station.
big air station.
What do they call it? Top Gun School at Miramar.
At that time, they had hundreds of airplanes parked out there ready to be mothballed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, now they've got those all out in the desert.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you able to stay in touch with your family during the war?
Oh, yeah. I was getting letters by V-mail, the
Right.
condensed.
Sure. And was it pretty regular, effective service?
Yeah, every few weeks I get a bunch of mail.
Okay. What was the food like?
Food pretty bad up in the Pacific area.
Were they, what, with K rations, I guess, did they call them at that time?
No, we had hot food most of the time.
Okay. It just wasn't good hot food.
In fact, we were on one island where the Navy food was so bad that we'd take cigarettes down to the New Zealand food dump and trade the cigarettes for food.
From the New Zealanders,
And
huh?
we'd bring it back to the CB mess hall, and they'd give us chow passes. We'd avoid the Navy mess.
Yeah, okay. I always thought that the Navy had good cooks. In fact, I had a buddy who was a cook in the Navy. I'll have to, although it was a different time period,
Well,
but I'll have to tell him about that.
We had a saying out there, the Navy food is fine until the cooks got hold of it.
I'll have to tell my buddy that one for sure. Do you have any problems with other supplies?
No,
Parts for airplanes, for
No,
example.
No, we had plenty of supply.
You know, it wasn't like you had to cannibalize some planes to fix others.
In
Stuff was
fact,
there.
we were overstocked a lot of places.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to hear, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything that you or people in your unit did for good luck? Any little customs or
Not particularly.
rituals? Okay. What did you do for entertainment?
Play cards. A lot of poker games going on.
Did you come out ahead or did you lose?
I came out a little ahead.
Okay. Maybe we shouldn't ask that in front of your wife, huh? You talked a little bit about your leave. The question here, where did you travel while in the service? You did a lot of traveling,
Oh,
but any traveling other than assignments?
No.
Okay. Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events that happened? You know those stories that you tell when you get together with your buddies in a bar?
Well, I recall once out on Midway Island, we had an air raid alert. I really shouldn't say that.
Oh, well, I would say you should.
But there were so many birds on the island.
Okay.
And one of my friends had to go behind the bushes, and a bird got him.
Saving me almost.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, in Bougainville one morning I was shaving. A couple of bullets hit the tree above me from a sniper, I think.
Uh-huh.
We were that close to the lines.
Right. Anybody get the sniper?
I don't know.
Joe, how about the crabs?
Oh, on Vela de Vela. We were in pyramid tents, and during the night, these big crabs came out of the ocean. I think it was mating season.
Okay, you say big, how big?
Oh, they were like this.
Okay.
And they came right through the camp area, right through our tents. And some of the guys went out there killing them. Well, in that hot, humid weather, they were burying them by the next morning.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the smell?
They deteriorate pretty fast.
Right, right. So no crab legs there, huh? We looked at some of the, do you have other photographs perhaps? I see we've got some photographs here. Anything of particular interest you'd like to?
There's some I picked up from. This was a friend of mine who got killed out in the islands. Operational accident.
Well, now, what do you mean by operational accident?
I'll tell you what happened. He was tall. He was about 6'3" or 4", and he was a plane captain,
Okay.
charged with the plane. He had an early morning takeoff, and as he was going in to pull the wheel chocks, the pilot accidentally set off the wing guns,
Oh, wow.
and that was all.
Sure.
This was taken on Guadalcanal. That's a Jap ship sunk out there.
Is that you in the picture?
No, that's another fellow from my outfit. That's a jet gun.
Now, who took these pictures?
I don't know. I picked him up from another friend of mine.
Okay.
It was a half-track Jeff, that's Jeff.
Probably quite an eerie feeling being on these places where the enemy so shortly before your
Yeah,
time was located there.
Right.
Do you have any pictures of you in the service here?
I don't, there might be something in here, I don't know.
See, I don't have any pictures of me because I'm always on the other end of the camera. But
Here's some of the natives with Jap flags.
Oh, I should have bought that nice marine picture.
There's a Jap plane.
now the airstrips that you use, had those previously been used by the Japanese, or were those newly built?
The only one that was previously used was partially finished on Monday.
Okay.
Here's one of our planes,
Okay, and that's
Corsair.
a Corsair with the gull wing configuration. Corsair was a very effective, very
Oh, yeah, they were
high speed, very maneuverable type plane.
considered one of the best fighter planes of World War II.
Right.
Here's a Jap bomber.
Now, did all the aviation work that you did was primarily with fighters?
Yes. Here's that same
Right.
sunken Jap. There's another one.
Okay. Okay, let's
Here's an example of a V-mail.
right. Okay, okay. Now I've seen V-mail, but I've never seen it in an envelope.
Here,
We've got a number of examples
Oh, yeah.
of V-mail, but typically we have these size,
Yeah.
and here, if you can see my hand, you can get an idea of the size of it. And V-mail was basically shrunk down to
Right.
avoid the amount and weight,
saving weight
right.
paper.
And we have numerous examples of that in our collection, but as I say, I've never seen one out of an envelope. Okay, let's move on a little bit.
Here's a school, 87th and Anson.
Oh, great. Yeah, Chicago Vocational, one of the schools in our area, used as a naval training facility during World War II. And this would be just information
Yeah.
about the base.
Yeah.
Okay. And it looks like here the official name was the Naval Air Technical Training Center at 87th and Anthony. This is very interesting. Okay,
About it?
did you keep a diary
No,
or a journal? No.
no.
Okay. A lot of people kind of look back and say, gee, I wish I had,
In
but
fact,
it
I
was
had-
not the kind of thing you had time to do.
I had a good friend from Montana who did keep a diary.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I was able to get my chronological
Right,
thing
right.
from him.
Mm-hmm.
But he happened to be, before the war, he was in the original group of smoke jumpers in Montana.
Okay.
And we
And it-
went out, we visited him when my son went to school in Montana.
Did he was a mechanic?
Yes, he was a plane captain, charged
Okay.
of one of the planes.
Well, with experience in jumping, why didn't they put him in? You wonder why they didn't put him in the paratroopers.
Well, the Marines were considering paratroopers,
Oh,
but
okay.
they decided they couldn't use them in jungle or.
Okay, right, okay. That makes sense. Do you recall the day that your service ended?
The day I got discharged.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
From Miramar, I think it was January the 8th.
right, January the 8th, 1946. And what was your transition back home?
I had been home on leave sometime during 45. And
Where was home at that time?
to go back while I was 87th and Anthony, I met my future wife.
Okay.
who lived about a mile away from there. And while I was at the school, I managed to get home to Ohio a couple times for the weekend. And in fact, I bought a car while I was home one weekend and drove it out to California.
Oh, that'd be an interesting
So
drive in those days.
Old Route 66.
Yeah.
So after I got discharged, I drove up to Los Angeles area and visited my sister in Long Beach. And from there, I drove back home to Ohio.
Okay. When you got back after the service, what did you do in the next weeks when you returned home?
Well, we were able to we got some compensation, like the government paid some compensation, and I had accumulated some leave that I didn't use, so I had some extra pay for that.
Okay.
And actually, it was only from January to March when we got married,
Okay. And when did you go back to work?
right after I was married.
Okay. Got to pay those bills, right?
Then you went to school.
Yeah, I went to school downtown.
Where did you go to work?
Started working at the Ford plant.
And you, of course, were living in Chicago
Yeah,
at that time.
until they went on strike and I got out of there.
Okay, and then over to?
I took a job on 87th Street with a company that was called Marquette Bolt and Rivet. They were at 83rd and Marquette.
Did you ever use your aviation mechanics
No.
again?
No,
Okay. Did you go back to school at all?
I went to school downtown for trade school for tool and die work.
Was that part of the GI Bill?
Yeah,
Okay.
I forget how long it was, but I was going down there nights for a long time.
Did you make any close friends while you were in the service?
One of my best friends was John Wilson, who was from Montana, and I had a good friend from Indianapolis, a picture or something.
Did you maintain that contact with those fellows?
No, I've lost contact with this man, but my friend in Montana died about 2 years ago.
Okay. Did you join a veterans organization?
I just joined recently,
Okay.
American Legion.
Did your military experience influence your attitudes towards war or towards the military in general?
Well, I think actually everybody knew that World War II was absolutely necessary,
Right.
but we had our doubts about Vietnam.
Sure. Did you feel that overall your experience in the military was a positive thing?
Yes, yes.
And did your experiences in the military and in the service have any effects in general on your life? It obviously took 6 years or 5 years out of your life,
Right.
but
It's I don't regret that time, but I wouldn't want to go through it again.
sure, sure. Did you attend any reunions?
No.
Okay. And is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't mentioned?
Joe, when you struck, what's his name in the plane the day he was shot?
Oh, yeah. Well, it happened while we were servicing the Black Sheep. I happened to help Pappy Boyington in the plane the day he was shot down.
Oh. Well, where was he shot down?
Off of Rabaul.
Okay, and then he was captured?
He was a prisoner for more than a year, I think.
Okay. All right, anything else that you'd like to add?
Not that I recall.
Okay. We recognize that this set of questions is by no means comprehensive. If you'd like to add anything or comment on any of the things you said, anything that we didn't ask about or didn't elaborate that you'd like to do, please feel free to do so. At a later time, we can add to this tape. We can add a written contact. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the Southeast Historical Society. We sincerely appreciate the fact that you took the time to participate in this interview, and would like to thank you very much.
Thank you.